I'm a geographer who for a long time has been studying issues of international development and international trade. It was through years of research that I happened upon the subject of the history of freshness. There are certain kinds of ideals related to freshness that go back a long way. The Romans had their runners bringing live fish into the banquet halls. That was the ultimate in freshness. What freshness means really depends a lot on the food in question. It really matters to have the freshest possible ear of sweet corn. It makes a big difference in how it tastes. Freshness in a lot of fruit is actually not the critical thing. What's going to make fruit taste good is whether it was fully ripened when picked. I decided to split up the research and the book by foodstuff. I just started diving into the history of all these foods and looking in particular at what happened to the trade and consumption when refrigeration was invented. It turned out that refrigeration in the late 19th century was in some ways as controversial then as genetic engineering is today. People thought that it was an immoral technology. They thought it was potentially a dangerous one. The refrigerator in some ways defied the physics of freshness as people understood it in the late 19th century. All of a sudden fresh foods could come from out of season and far away. Consumers really didn't know if refrigerated food was fresh. And then it struck me that, we assume that if food is in the fridge, it must be fresh, and that there had been some kind of really profound shift in between then and now. One thing that I didn't expect in writing this book was how much this would turn out to be kind of an American story. In the early 20th century, all these giant cold storage warehouses went up in cities around the US. Egg storage became really controversial. Eggs used to be as seasonal a food as peaches or sweet peas. So people for generations had learned to keep eggs for months at a time. Egg storage was no big deal when people were doing it in their own cellars, but when millions of eggs were being stored in these warehouses, people began to suspect that this was somehow manipulating the market in suspicious ways. I think one of the most paradoxical things about freshness is it's, in modern times, a quality that has become possible through industrialization. In some ways has become more desirable because of industrialization, but at the same time has also become more questionable. It's really only in societies where we seem to be getting disconnected from our food supply that we become sort of preoccupied with this question about whether it's really fresh.